You're hearing the audio okay?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Good morning, all. Let me first say thank you for making the time to join our webinar this morning, which is entitled Unlocking the Power of EPIC's Custom Improvements Features. And I know we have a mix of attendees this morning, some of which are experienced EPIC users and some of which are new. See, Dub is having a problem with the audio. Tracy, you want to see if you can deal with that while I provide the intro?
Yeah.
So for those of you who are new to SRS and EPIC, I thought I would start with a brief introduction, and then we'll get underway with a live demonstration where Tracy will take the lead. So a few comments about SRS. For over a decade now, we've been a leader in the administration of state and local government-sponsored commercial property assessed clean energy financing programs. And in the course of administering these public-private partnerships, we get to collaborate with a lot of project development professionals that runs the gamut from project development firms, HVAC contracting firms, and solar PV firms, namely. And as part of our responsibilities in administering these programs, we have responsibility to conduct project technical reviews. And in the course of that 10-year or so term, we've developed several software data and analytic tools. EPIC represents our third generation software tool, actually. And that enables us to, in a technology-enabled fashion, to time and cost effectively analyze projects, collaborate with the project stakeholders. And EPIC, as I noted, is our third generation tool. And what we were really aiming for here is to build a cloud-based application that would be easy to use, which is to say only require minimal data inputs, and help the project stakeholders to create the business case analytics that are often needed by the property owner to help them see the business case to invest in high efficiency equipment. Tracy Phillips will be our speaker today, and I just wanted to introduce him. Some of you are currently collaborating with Tracy in the state of Colorado and know he's the director of the Colorado CPACE program for SRS. And in his role in that function, Tracy often provides technical assistance and other related support services to project stakeholders. And the use of EPIC has been a critical tool from our point of view as a PACE program administrator to help facilitate that collaboration through the project scenario development and optimization process. And we've been of late developing this custom improvements feature to further support stakeholders, and that's what Tracy will feature in his remarks this morning, and covering this topic, generally focusing on three key areas that the custom improvements feature can support as you're working on projects, and those are custom energy efficiency measures, renewable energy systems, namely solar PV, and also other cost and savings, things like utility rebates, on renewable projects, the investment tax credit and accelerated depreciation, and other custom fees that you may want to enter as you build out a project scenario or a proposal support documentation. And ultimately, that will lead to Tracy sharing with you how EPIC enables these business case analytics and can help you make the business case to an owner considering high efficiency investments that often come with a price premium and therefore beg the question from the owner about the return on investment on such measures. So with that, Tracy, I'm going to hand it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Brian. Let me go ahead and share my screen. So yeah, as Brian mentioned, we use this quite a bit in the Colorado CPACE program. We have both project originators using the program. I'm sorry, using Epic, and we use it internally for every single CPACE project that's developed. So a lot of projects will come into us, and the project originator, whether it's a contractor or an energy consultant or some other type of firm, they'll use Epic, and then that's really easy for us. Even if they didn't use Epic, everything gets entered into the Epic tool, the Epic platform, from the Colorado CPACE perspective. One of the two main reasons for that, one is it's part of our quality assurance process, so it really helps us with the review of these projects. The other is it helps us develop the Epic report, which is really has become the front-facing report that the program, the CPACE program in Colorado, uses to communicate with the owner, the mortgage holder, the capital provider. It's been really nice. Everybody's working off the same format. We've had nothing but tremendous response from that report over the last couple of years that we've been using this. So I'm going to show you develop a project along with everybody on the call, and enter in specifically some different types of improvements to show you how that other improvement and cost functionality can be used and how we've been using it. I'll encourage everybody on the call to ask if you have questions or you have thoughts or something you want to share. Just unmute yourself, interrupt me, and go ahead and ask away. I'd like this to be sort of conversational if possible. If that doesn't work, just shoot a chat, and I'll try to check that as well. Otherwise, if you wouldn't mind, it sounds like everyone's being really good about staying on mute. So stay on mute if you can. Otherwise, okay, everyone's seeing my screen. I'm going to go ahead and like Brian said, I think many of you are familiar with Epic. Those of you that are not, when you first come into the Epic tool, you'll have a list of any projects you're working on. And I'm going to start by adding a property. So I click the button in the upper right, and I'm going to start with an address. And I picked a building, I thought a mid-sized building in Denver would be good. I'm going to do this one right here. Let me check if someone's not muted. I think we're good. Okay. All right. So I'm going to do 2425 South Colorado Boulevard in Denver. This is about a 30,000 square foot building. So once I enter in the address, we'll see the project be added to my list. And I'm going to, over on the right, there's these action buttons. I'm going to click on the edit project info to get started. And when I first come in, it'll give me a list of scenarios that I can develop. The idea being you could look at, maybe high efficiency equipment versus standard efficiency equipment, or maybe different financing options for an owner. You can create as many scenarios as you want and share as many of those with the owner that you would like, but it allows you sort of to test out different options. And when I click on, I'm going to start by adding a scenario. I won't get into this, but this is a new functionality that was just added to Epic, where you can choose between single use or multi-use. So most of the time you'll be choosing single use. But if you do have a property where there's, various uses, property types in the building that may have very disparate loads, then you now have the ability to enter in up to 5 different use types for a single property. But that's for another masterclass. I'm going to focus on just single use. All right, so let's get the basic information. So right now, Epic's looking to see if it can find anything out about this building, and it did. It figured out the building was built in 1978, and that it's a little over 30,000 square feet. So that's great. So I just need to enter the property type, and I know this is an office building. So I'm going to scroll down, find office, and choose that. And now these 4 bits of information is what really helps Epic mine its data set, the portfolio of buildings, the thousands of buildings that we already have in the Epic tool. And so just those 4 data help it figure out certain information about the building and provide a lot of defaults. So it's defaulted to under existing cooling and heating. It's chosen that it's most likely some kind of DX cooling, air conditioning, and some kind of natural gas heating, whether that's a furnace or a boiler. So that's most likely correct. If it's something else, you can always change it. If you actually get information about the building down the road, you can change it to a heat pump system or chillers or whatever you need to do. And for my list of improvements, I'm going to keep it pretty straightforward, and then I'm going to add a bunch of custom. So I'm just going to say, very typical we'd see in Colorado, we're going to replace the heating and cooling equipment and do a lighting retrofit. So I'm going to choose those three. Now, before I dive into the analytics, one important thing to do is to go to this key assumptions. Let me expand this, the key assumptions section. And I always check this right away, the energy costs. So Epic is doing its best based on the EIA's data for looking at what's the average utility rate schedules for the region that your building is in. But there's a lot of variability, especially in Colorado. We have like 50 different utilities. So there's a lot of variability on the rate. So I always make it a point to go here right away. And some of the things I'm going to change immediately, because I know the rates in Denver, I'm going to turn off the natural gas demand cost. And then for the electric, this is pretty good, but I know it's more like it's more like 0.05 cents a kilowatt hour, and it's more like $19 a kW for this building. So if you don't have that level of information, it's fine to leave it sort of where Epic starts you, but it's always good to try to dial this in first. So, okay. So, and I don't have any utility data about the building. I'm going to use Epic's baseline at this point. If you're curious, for those of you that are unfamiliar, it uses CBEX, the Commercial Building Energy Consumption Survey, to determine a baseline. And then it also further calibrates that data with the thousands of buildings that are in Epic. So it creates a sort of calibrated baseline to work with. So, all right, now I'm ready to get to work. So I'm going to hit update. And I'm going to go to the energy improvements. And so here are the three that I chose, right? A lighting retrofit, the cooling, and the heating system. I'm gonna change out. And for each one of these, I need to enable them. You can turn them on or off, depending on, if you want to look at different scenarios, how does this affect your SIR, your simple payback, your cash flow? So I'm just going to go through and enable each of these. And really the focus isn't on these. So I'll go through it fairly quickly, but I'll enable the lighting. I'll say, yep, this all looks good. It's got my estimated cost, the estimated amount of reduction on the lighting end use that it's going to produce. So that all looks good. I'll hit submit. And I'm going to do the same for the air conditioning, the cooling side. So I hit enable. Again, it's defaulting to a high efficiency HVAC equipment, so a 13.5 EER. It's estimating the baseline efficiency of the equipment based on the age of the equipment. So that looks great. It's estimating the capacity. I haven't been to this building, so I don't know anything better. So this is good for sort of this first look. And this is my really exciting piece here, the estimated installed cost, which can take a while to get from contractors. So, all right, I'm happy with that. I'll hit submit. Heating, exactly the same. Estimated efficiency of the existing system, a new efficiency, estimated capacity, and what's it going to cost. So I'm going to hit submit. So I've got everything entered in, and you can see in the upper right. All right, I'm looking at about a $258,000 project. So good size project. It's cash flow positive, which is challenging when you're replacing the heating and cooling equipment, but the lighting is sort of helping us out. So okay. So now we're going to get into the fun stuff. So let's say you want to enter in an energy improvement that Epic doesn't handle. So as an example, I'm going to do a lighting occupancy sensor. So when I click on this other improvement and cost, this is where it really allows me to tailor my project. I have the choice of either energy efficiency, renewable energy, or any other cost or savings that I want to include. And so in this case, I'm going to add in an energy efficiency. I'll call it a lighting occupancy sensors. So anything that you enter in as an other improvement or cost, it's your responsibility to figure out what is it going to save and what is it going to cost, right? And then you have the ability to enter it in to the Epic platform. So I have to make some estimates here. So it's a lighting occupancy sensor. So under end use impact, again, I have a choice. I could say, well, what does this improvement affect? What part of the building's energy use? And so you could just say all, and it'll just sort of create energy cost savings associated with the entire energy use of the building, or I can dial it in. And so in this case, lighting occupancy sensors, I'm going to have it focus on the lighting end use. So I'm going to choose that. I have to come up with a net installed cost. So let's say it's something conservative like $2,300. And then again, I have to come up with an estimate of savings. So sort of the rule of thumb for lighting for my performance contracting days is about 10% savings. And I have to put in an estimated useful life. How long are the occupancy sensors going to last? Typically, that's 8 years. I can also add in a performance degradation factor, like how much is the performance going to degrade for those occupancy sensors over time. I don't really have a good sense of what that's going to be, so I'm going to just leave it blank, and I'm going to hit submit. And so you can see the lighting occupancy sensors now added to my list. I also like to group things. So you can move, if you see, I hover over the little 6 dots on the left. I want to put the lighting right next to the lighting. So I'm just going to drag and drop it next to the lighting retrofit. So it just reads easier for me or for an owner or for anybody else. That's how I prefer to do it. But you can see that now that savings from the lighting occupancy sensor has been added in. Okay. So now I'm going to do solar. So this is very popular, especially in our CPACE programs. About 25% of the projects we deal with solar in some way or another. So I'll show you how we enter those. So again, I'm going to choose the other improvement or cost. Now I'm going to choose renewable energy. And I'm going to put in a 25 kilowatt solar PV system. So again, I'm getting this information from a solar contractor typically, or I'm making some estimate on my own. We actually have another tool called the Solar Paceworks Estimator. And so a lot of times I'll use that if I haven't heard from a solar contractor yet. But usually this is something that's easy to get. So I got a 25 kilowatt solar PV system. I'm going to assume $2.50 a watt. So we'll call it $62,500 for the net installed cost. For my first year savings, again, in this case, I used our solar estimator to figure out what the kilowatt hour savings were and what the resulting energy cost savings. And I came up with about $1,800 a year in cost savings. The estimated useful life for solar is almost always 25 years.
Can I ask
and
a
again,
question?
performance. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so that first year savings, so that is not pulling from a rate schedule. You're not telling it here, okay, this is Excel and it's not pulling its residential. You have to just kind of calculate that yourself.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So I'll get the kilowatt hours saved and then I'll look up their rate schedule. That's what I did for this project and figured out, right, $1,800, or the solar contractor will provide that to you. That's right.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's independent. Whatever I put in the key assumption section, doesn't matter. It's not looking at that. Great question. Okay. So then the performance degradation, usually for solar, it's about 0.5% performance degradation, unless you have like, I've seen every once in a while 0.25%, but usually it's 0.5%. So, all right. So I got my solar PV system entered. I'll hit submit. And now it's going to add this to the project. So with solar, one of the real best financial reasons to do solar is the tax credits that you're going to get, right? And everybody, I'm sure, has seen with the Inflation Reduction Act, they just went up, and they're actually pretty aggressive now. So it's pretty fantastic for the solar industry. So I want to add those in. I want to show the owner what these positive cash flows are going to look like. So again, I'm going to use the other improvement in cost. And this is where I choose the third option, additional costs or savings. And this really gives me a lot of flexibility, a lot of different things I can do here. So first, I always start with the investment tax credit. Now it's at 30%. And under my cost or savings type, I have a choice. I can do an installed cost or an installed savings. I can also add in any maintenance costs or savings I want to include. I can include a post-installation cost or savings, or in this case, it's a tax benefit. You can include a tax benefit, a grant, or any other kind of credit. So that's what I'm going to choose, this tax benefit. For the term, that means, well, when do they get this money? Does it roll in over a certain amount of years, or do they get it? In this case, they should get it all year one. So I'm going to put term is 1 year. And then it's going to be 30% of the $62,500. So they're going to get $18,750 as a tax credit. So
Can I ask
enter
a
that
question for
in.
you?
Yeah.
Okay, so for example, now that we have maybe like direct pay of tax credits to nonprofits, right? They may need
Which is great.
Right, it's awesome. Maybe they're going to do their project, they're going to get a loan, and maybe they don't get that tax credit like until say a year later or 2 years later. It's like money in the bank.
Yep.
So then you just say, okay, we think the term is 2 years and it comes in at year 2, and does it just then calculate?
Yeah. Yeah, if you want to dial it in that far, that's exactly right. So I can say I'll have to do it this way. So you do it as a post-installation savings.
Okay.
And then I do it as 2 years. And then where it says apply savings to year, it gives me a drop down. It gives me a choice. So are they getting this every year, or just in this case, we want to say you're just getting it year 2. So I'm going to uncheck year 1, do year 2, and I hit submit. And now that cash flow won't, and I'll leave it like that. Okay. And I'll show you in the cash flow table what that looks like. But now, right, they're getting that $18,750, but it's not showing up until year 2.
That's fantastic. What a great tool.
It is. Yeah. I love it. I'll tell you real quickly too, like I've had solar contractors, and we talk about the inverters and how long they last. Right. And so inverters, let's say at year 10, they're going to have to replace the inverters, and they want to include that replacement cost in the project. So I'll enter that. We'll enter that in as a post-installation cost, put in the amount that the inverter replacement costs, and then have it only appear year 10. And so again, that'll sort of be in the cash flow table.
So then I'm assuming you could also say, put in an annual O&M cost. Say you want an HOA to really think about, like, I'm just going to take this money from my homeowners, my multifamily project every year, like $200 a year. You could put that in as a cost that happened every year, and just
let's do that.
What that looks like.
Yeah, so let's call it a maintenance cost. And again, right, I'll choose this is going to be a post-installation cost. So I choose that. And right, let's say they're going to do a 10-year contract, or they're going to hire a maintenance, or it's built into their lease, or whatever, like you described. And it's, I don't know, $500 every year for 10 years. And I just hit submit. And so then now that negative $500 is going to show up in the cash flow of the project for the next 10 years. So that's right.
That's great. You could pretty much add anything you could think of, really.
That's exactly right. Yep. So I'll do a couple of others just that are typical of solar. So with the investment tax credit, you usually have the makers 100% bonus depreciation. I always include this as well. So again, I'm going to put in the makers, and this is a tax benefit. I'll say again, this you could stretch it out over 5 years or whatever. The 100% bonus they would get year 1, and it'd be something like $11,156 for this project.
But
so right, so just like you said, you could
yourself, right? Like you've gone and put together your own little calculation on what that's going to be based on their tax.
Yep.
You have to reduce.
That's right. Yeah, like for the makers, the way I calculate it, right? It's $62,500. You take 85% of that value, and then you multiply it by their tax liability rate. So right. I usually use 21% to be conservative, unless I know better from the owner. So that's how I calculated the 11,156. And again, I like to group them, so I'm going to move the makers up to be right below the ITC. So I'll just drag and drop it, so I have my list nice and organized. I'm a very organized person. So the other with solar in Denver, I know the utility has an incentive called Solar Rewards, where they pay 3.75 cents per kilowatt hour every year over 20 years, which is nice. And so I want to add that in as well. So I'm going to, again, choose the other improvement cost. This is going to be, again, an additional cost or savings. I'm going to call it Excel's Solar Rewards. And under my cost savings or type, I'm going to choose, this is a post-installation savings. This is a check they're going to get from the utility every year for 20 years. So I choose post-installation savings. The term is going to be 20 years. And I calculated the savings 3.75 cents on, and it's about $1,320 a year that they'll get. And again, I hit submit. And now I've got that Excel Solar Rewards cash flow over 20 years all built in. So you could do other things, like very common would be maybe an electrical upgrade that they want to include in the cost of the project, like if they're going to finance it. And an electrical upgrade in Colorado would be considered related to the solar, so you could finance it through CPACE. So yeah, we want to finance that. So that's an installed cost, very straightforward. And let's just call it $3,500 for that. Or maybe you have a project development fee. You know, you're helping put this project together for the owner. You want to get a little recognition financially for that. So you say, and here's my project development fee. And again, it's an installed cost, and I don't know, you pay yourself pretty well, $5,000, and you hit submit, whatever you want to include. So, but that's the idea, right? You can really tailor it and then add as many things as you want, both energy improvements, renewable energy, and any other cost or savings. So,
Tracy, can I ask a question about that solar rewards one? So when you have a performance-based incentive like that, is it thinking about, like, because it's based on kilowatt hours and kilowatt hour production changes over time, do you have to just do it linear, like you put in the first year and it just does it, it's the same every year? Or
yeah, you do, but here's how I handle that, right? So when I'm estimating the solar rewards for a building owner, I'll just like you said, I'll look at what's the kilowatt hours saved year one. So I'm doing this in a spreadsheet on the side, right?
Yeah.
Here's the kilowatt hours saved year one. And then there's a 0.5% performance degradation each year over year. So I'll calculate, that's a simple calculation, right? I'll calculate what the kilowatt hours drop each year over year for 20 years. Then I'll also apply the 3% utility escalation rate. So I'll multiply that by 1.03 each year over year for the dollars savings. So and then I just take an average and I apply that average over 20 years. I think that's the easiest way. You could, if you really wanted to be crazy, you could do ITC year one is this, then do another line. ITC year two is this. But I don't think anybody wants to see that. All right. Any other questions or thought? Any other kind of improvements that anybody can think of that you're wondering, well, how would I enter this or how would I enter that? All right. Well, this gives you pretty good cross sections of the types of improvements. So I'll just sort of carry it through. Oh, wait.
Peter?
Go ahead. Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you do a heat pump water heater?
Okay, yes. So let me do this. So I'm going to save this. This is my, I'm going to hit save. And now it's asking me when I hit save, and by the way, save often, save early, you know, that's my mantra. So I'm going to save this and I'll give it a scenario name and we'll call it high efficiency HVAC because I'm going to show you a couple other things in a minute. And I'll hit save. Now I can go back to the building information. So the question was, can you look at like converting to a heat pump system? And right. So we're seeing a real big uptake on electrification across the country, really. Right. And I will tell you right now, it's very challenging to pencil these projects out in Colorado because we have very high demand charges in most places. So, and we don't really have the incentives in place like they do in Massachusetts, say, to really support these projects yet. But let me show you how you would do that. So I saved my original high efficiency HVAC. I can go back to it. I want to look at what electrification looks like for this building. So I'm going to uncheck the like-for-like replacement, right? Just replacing the equipment that's there now with something that's more efficient. And we have this system conversion. So this is specifically designed to look at converting the entire system to some form of electric, whether it's heat pumps or you can do variable refrigerant flow. And so in this case, we want to look at heat pumps. So it's just as simple. I click on heat pumps and I hit submit. And now it's going to take me to the energy improvements. And you can see everything I did before is still there. Good. I don't want to lose all that. But now I have the heat pumps added in. And when I hit enable, it gives me, again, the detailed screen where I can change, you know, if I have a better idea of the capacity of the system, both on the cooling and the heating, on any of the efficiencies that I want to enter in, the coincidence factors. So I don't know much at this point of the project, so I'm going to leave it like this. And I hit submit. And now I've got a heat pump system, this retrofit added in. And you can see this is pretty remarkable. As an energy modeler, I used to, do models. This was really the only way. I had spreadsheet calculations for hundreds of things. I still have those spreadsheet calculations, by the way. Every engineer, energy consultant sort of covets them once they've created them. But regardless, the only way to really do a system conversion is to do an energy model, and it could usually take a week or a couple of weeks to do. This is pretty remarkable that you can get results within a few seconds, right? And it's accounting for, you can see you got your penalty, right? Because now I'm going from heating with gas to heating with electric. So this is why my net cost is in the red, is because of this right here, this negative 717 kilowatt hours a year in Colorado. If I'm on Excel secondary general rate schedule, that $19 a kW just is a real killer. Just to sort of drive the point home, I'll show you. I'll go to the key assumptions, and let's pretend I don't have demand charge. And let's see what that does. And so I'm almost positive. That's better. But that just shows you the effect of the demand on, the demand charge on these types of projects. So anyway, yes, that's how you would do that.
About heat pump water heaters, not heat pump heating system. So there's
so a heat pump water heater, again, that would be an other improvement or cost. So yeah, you'd have to do. I actually worked with an organization in the mountains, and yeah, they have a lot of electrification projects they're doing. And right, they were talking about converting hot dryers and kitchen equipment, and a lot of different things to electric or heat pumps. Those, you'll need to do outside of Epic, but then you can enter them in as a other improvement or cost. That's how you would handle that.
I saw that there is a box though for domestic hot water.
There is, so you can do it, but that's under the like for like replacement. So that would be replacing a domestic hot water system with another natural gas fired, more efficient domestic hot water system. Epic doesn't have the functionality to look at a heat pump version of that domestic hot water. That's something you'd have to do yourself.
So is this like tank to more efficient tank or tank to super efficient tankless?
Yeah, either or, right? Like, let me just show you. I'll click on it and hit submit. And when I go to my energy improvements, the domestic hot water right here, it's very similar to a certain extent to like your heating. Yeah, you say it, right? So, right, I can adjust the capacity or the efficiency. So I'm going very, very efficient. I just changed the new efficiency number right here. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So I'll go ahead and save this as a new scenario, and I'll call it heat pumps. And one other common, let me go back. I'll close this and I'll go back to my high efficiency HVAC, and I'll click edit on that scenario. And so One common thing that we see a lot of folks like to look at is high efficiency equipment versus code compliant equipment, right? That's one of the main missions we're trying to accomplish with this tool. One of the many is to push owners to the high efficiency option, right? They usually go lowest cost because all they're presented with are the costs of the systems. Here's high efficiency cost, here's standard efficiency cost, and they go with standard efficiency, just meet code. This tool gives you the ability to show an owner, well, there's other advantages, the energy cost savings, and this is what they're going to be to help make that case for high efficiency. So let me just show you how a lot of folks are doing that. So I'll go back to my energy improvements. Everything's the same, but now I want to change my my heating system to code compliant. So I'll click on the edit for the cooling. And here, there's really two things I always change to do this. I change the efficiency. So I'm going to go from 13.5 EER to code compliant 11 EER. And then, of course, the more efficient, the less efficient equipment is cheaper. And what we found, it's usually around 10% cheaper. So I'll call it 100,000 just to be easy. The same with the heating system, right? So I'm going less efficient. We'll call it, I don't know, 91% efficient and about $62,000. I'll hit submit. And so now I've got sort of my standard efficiency system, and I'll save it as exactly that. I'll call it standard efficiency. So I can show the owner a comparison. Now, I just realized I forgot something. So I'm going to go back to the high efficiency. So one of the other nice things about doing high efficiency equipment is you get incentives from the utility, right, for that higher efficiency equipment. So I forgot. And there's another other cost or savings you should include if you know what they are, because they're an important part of the cash flow. So I forgot to do it. Let me add them in now. So I'm going to choose the additional cost savings, and I'm going to call this HVAC incentives. And it's usually about, let me see, I actually calculated this ahead of time. Oh, wait, let me look. Sorry. It was about $178,000 total. Okay. So I'm going to add in an estimate of about 17. And so this is a post-installation savings, right? It's an incentive they'll get from the utility after it's been installed. They get it year one, and it's going to be about $17,000 in this case. So I should have entered that in earlier, but that's fine. I got it now. So HVAC incentives are right here. And again, I can move it up. I want to move it up above the solar, so it's nice and near the HVAC equipment. Okay. And I'll save that. And now let me show you what I wanted to show you. So I'm going to go back to the scenario screen. I just close out. So I've got standard efficiency, heat pumps, and high efficiency HVAC, right? And there's this comparison tool where you can compare any two scenarios and show the owner, decision maker, side by side what they look like. So this is a pretty common one where I want to say, okay, well, here's standard efficiency. I'll check the compare box, and high efficiency. It gives me like a quick sort of snapshot of what it's going to look like. And I hit download to download the scenario report. This is a one-page report. And once that's downloaded, 3, 2, 1, there it is. All right. And let me show you what this looks like. If you haven't used this functionality yet, but it's pretty nice. So it shows you, here's your base case standard efficiency, what everybody always rushes to do because they don't know better. And then here's the high efficiency. And so it gives you, side by side, here's the difference in savings, right? The high efficiency equipment, obviously you're getting more savings, but there's also a cost premium, right? The cost of the high efficiency equipment, it's about this much more in cost. So, but it gives you a breakdown of the increase in costs, the increase in savings. You're also, by the way, losing that incentive, right, from the utility for the standard efficiency. So this is how you can really make the case to a building owner of what, why it's smart, why it's a good deal to go with high efficiency equipment. They can see all the numbers side by side just this easily. Any questions on any of that?
Tracy, we had a question on financing and how that the financing cost influences the SIR. So maybe show the financing capability.
Yep. Okay, so let me go back to my high efficiency HVAC, and just a reminder. So here's my list of all my improvements. I got the lighting, the air conditioning and heating, the solar, the other costs. So now there's this funding scenario. So again, this is a really powerful use of the Epic tool, something as an energy consultant I never really got into before I entered this financing world, and didn't know a lot about it. And this really makes it easy. So you have three choices available depending on where you are. If you're in an area that has an active CPACE program, Epic's smart enough to know that, and it'll give you this PACE financing option. If you're unfortunately in an area that doesn't have CPACE yet, you'll only see self-fund and bank loan, right? But so here in Colorado, we've got all three. So, okay. So I've got my self-fund option. Write me a check for $332,000. You're going to pocket $415,000 over the life of the equipment with this net gain. So that's great. But the owner says, show me some financing options. So this is where I can click on bank loan. And it comes up with sort of your, general terms of a traditional bank loan. So usually you have to come out of pocket around 20%. So they got to put $66,440 down. They're going to finance the rest of it, let's say over 5 years at 5.5% interest rate. And so this is nice because it shows you the cash flow table, right? So you can see the project savings. This is the positive cash flow each year. That's a combination of the energy cost savings, any other incentives, or like the ITC, the makers, the incentive I'm getting from the utility. Over 20 years, I'm also getting that solar rewards incentive. So that's showing up. So that's where this is all. And I think we put in a maintenance fee of $500, right? So all that's being factored in. Not only that, but this number, it's also taking into account the performance degradation of the equipment each year, year over year. So the savings are dropping for each improvement a little bit. And then it's also applying a utility escalation factor, in this case, 3%. And by the way, if you're wondering, under key assumptions, if you haven't seen it, under the energy costs, it defaults to 3% for electricity and natural gas, but you can change that to whatever you think it should be, right? The escalation rate. I usually leave it at 3%. But all that's going into these project savings numbers. Then the bank loan I chose, 5 years at 5.5%. This shows the owner right away what their loan payments, an estimate of what their loan payments are going to be. So they can see right away what this project's going to look like and what do the cash flows look like year over year, right? So you can modify these too. Maybe they want to see a 7 year. So I just quickly change this to a 7, and it instantly shows what the difference in loan payments is going to be. It went from 60 grand to 45,000 a year, and what the cash flow. So these are the sort of knobs you can turn, the dials to get it tuned to whatever you want. Or let's say it's a PACE project. I choose PACE. Now it's nothing out of pocket, and I can finance it over 25 years. Let's say typical interest rate is 6.25 right now, maybe for a project this size. So the loan payments are much lower, but I'm also now a negative cash flow overall, right? I have a negative SIR. And so I know there are certain programs, not in Colorado, but like Texas, where you have an SIR greater than 1 requirement, right? So you could either dial in, like, let's say maybe if I do a 15-year term, okay, that does a lot better, but I'm still not quite there. So maybe I have to look back at my energy improvements, and maybe I can't do everything I wanted to do in order to get this positive cash flow. Like I can disable, let's say the space heating, just as an example. I can disable that and see what it does to my cash flow. Nope, still not there. Maybe I turn off. Now I can't do any HVAC. That's a bummer, but I got to I did it. All right. So if I want to work in Texas and do this project, this is one option. I do a 15-year finance term with CPACE, and I don't include the HVAC. I got to finance that separately, right? So, but this is one of the really nice features of this tool, that you could so quickly sort of just whatever you can think of, turn things on or off, change numbers, change finance terms, change interest rates until you arrive at an SIR greater than 1, as an example, or some kind of cash flow scenario that's going to work. I've had it all the time. Owners will say, well, I was expecting my payment to be X, $15,000 a year, and say, well, here you go. How's 15,770 sound? Is that good enough? But this is the kind of use of the tool where you can really dial in a project. So, okay, hopefully that gave everybody a good idea of financing. I saw a bunch of I haven't been following these, Brian. I don't know if you've got any other comments we should address or.
No, I'm following the chat, and those seem to be the questions to date, but we welcome any other questions this time. I think, Tracy, maybe if you showed the leave the funding scenario up and show the EPIC report on how it parses the cash metrics and then the financing metrics.
Yeah, so let me do that. So at the very bottom on the left here, this share PDF. So you click on this, and this is how you generate your report. This download EPIC report PDF. This is what you're going to do 98% of the time. This is what we do all the time. This is the I mentioned, sort of the front-facing report. And again, it's nice because it's the same report and it's a lot of dollar signs, which speaks to the owner, the mortgage holder, and the capital provider, the three main stakeholders in most projects' equations, especially CPACE. You can, just so you know, you can email it to somebody. You can also share it. If you haven't tried this functionality, share scenario with my contacts. So if somebody else that you know is using the EPIC tool, it might be a subcontractor you're working with, might be a colleague within your organization, and you want them to take a look at the project and review it and maybe make some edits or add some information that they have, you can use this to directly share the project within EPIC to somebody else. So otherwise, nobody can access your projects, right? They're sort of just you are the only one with that ability. But when you click on this, they get a copy of your project in EPIC, and then you can make adjustments, or they can, and share it back with you. So you get a copy shared back with you. So you still have your original project, but you can see what they changed. And if you like it, you'll use that version from that point on. But it's really powerful in terms of collaboration. I have contractors all the time sharing projects with me, and I'll sort of check their work, so to speak, make sure they did everything correctly. So, okay. So let's just take a quick look. For those of you that haven't seen the EPIC report, this is what it looks like. You can put in your own logo, by the way, and your own company name, so it appears on the report. Let me just real quick before I go into this. Let me save this. And then in the upper right, there's the little head and shoulders icon. And this gives you a lot of options. Under my preferences, if you click on this, you can change things like, units of measure you want it to default to. Like in Colorado, we always use therms. So I make sure I have therms as my natural gas choice. I know a lot of other areas might be CCF or whatever, but you can sort of dial it in. So that's the default metric. You could change I'm not going to go through all these, but under miscellaneous is where you can upload your own logo and put in your company name. So it'll appear on every report that you do. Okay, just a quick little aside. So quick tour of the report starts out with the general information about the building, right? So, okay, this all looks good. It's a 30,000 square foot office building in Denver. It gives me a real quick summary of the project, right? So without the HVAC, it's a smaller project, but I'm looking at a $153,000 project. Here's the lifetime savings and the net gain. here's the cash flow year over year. So again, just to reiterate, this is where you can see we had the ITC. Actually, we had the ITC being applied year 2, right? So that's why there's this bump in year 2. The makers, the incentive from the utility for the HVAC equipment is all happening year 1. That's why it's so big, right? So these are the nice big cash flow years. Then it's sort of a steady, there's your energy cost savings. I'm getting that solar rewards incentive from Excel. I think we put in a negative maintenance cost every year for the maintenance contract. And then there's a performance degradation factor for the performance of the equipment being applied and a utility escalation factor being applied. So that's why this looks like this. And then year 12, the reason why there's a dip, that's the end of the estimated useful life of the lighting retrofit, right? Which I can change, by the way, if I want to. But that's why the savings sort of take a dip there. So just to give you an idea, this is what this this chart represents, is all sort of the combination of different cash flows that are happening. So here's our summary table, as you would expect, the different improvements and other costs and savings, what they each cost, what are their savings, demand savings, and then first year cost savings, right? We have a whole bunch of different things happening, and then lifetime cost savings in the last column. So, but then this is where the owner starts to lean in, is the key financial metrics, right? So it shows a little more detail. Here's the savings to investment ratio, which again can be very powerful depending on where you're at. Now, this is just if they paid for it out of pocket, right? So you got to understand that. This is another really amazing part of the storytelling I found, depending on the owner type, which is the estimated property value increase. So the way Epic's doing that is when your net operating income goes up, right? You're reducing the utility costs each year. So NOI goes up. That's directly related to the value of the property going up based on the capitalization rate, which Epic is also looking up for that region. And again, you can change if you want to in your preferences. But so whenever I'm doing my storytelling to an owner, this is an important piece, right? Not only are you getting the energy cost savings, but the value of your property is going up an estimated $171,000. So that can really be sort of the seal the deal kind of data point, if you will. Then it shows the PACE financing scenario specifically, right? And this is where, like, if I'm in Dub Taylor's program, I need this savings to investment ratio to be greater than 1. And I've got a 1.2. So I'm good. I'm in good shape. But it shows the other details specific to the PACE finance scenario. If I left it on bank scenario, it would show that, right? Or if I want to show them a 25-year finance term, this is where that would appear. Then I've got that cash flow table I showed you earlier within Epic, right? So here it is reproduced in the report so they can see year over year, what are the cash flows? What are the positive cost savings? What are my payments each year? And then this is what's coming in or going out of my bank account, right? This is A or B minus C equals D. And then what are the cumulative cash flows? So the nice thing about this project, I'm looking at the cumulative, and I'm only negative cash flow 2 years, not till year 15, and then it recovers and I come all the way back up again. So this is a pretty solid looking project from my perspective for an owner. Just to finish the tour of the report, it then gives you the key assumptions. So what did I use for utility rate schedules, the baseline energy use of the building, right? I left it as sort of the estimate. If I had utility data, I could enter it in at a later point. It's also got the EUI, which again, in Colorado, this is going to be very powerful because we have building performance standards that are going online as of January 2023. So all buildings over 25,000 square feet are going to have to meet certain EUI metrics. So that's important. We've got the end use profile. So I didn't really go into this, but this is something else you can dial in. This is, again, based on CBEX and then further calibrated with the portfolio of data, the projects that we have already in Epic. But again, you could turn the knobs here if you want. Then this is sort of well, it's not that new anymore, but the performance comparison with peer buildings. So this is using Energy Star to take a look at where is the building today and where is it going to be after I do this project. So again, this is becoming more and more important in areas where you might have building performance standards, where you need to meet certain EUI metrics. You can show an owner different options and how far is that going to get them to their goal. Then the rest of the report is really details about each improvement. So it shows you, relative to the lighting, the solar, what was used in terms of the calculations and what are the energy costs, dollar savings, all the rest, all those details are sort of laid out here. We found, like for our program, if a contractor is using this to originate a project and sends us the EPIC report, this is sort of that extra layer of detail we might need about the improvements. The owner usually doesn't get this far in the report. Most of them have stopped already at the cash flow table. The last thing I'll mention too, there's this environmental and societal benefit. So again, some owners or some organizations, this may mean something to them. Maybe they have some kind of, greenhouse gas emission reduction efforts going on. And so this is really nice. It shows them what the emission reductions are going to be. A lot of programs or municipalities that might have climate action plans. Again, this is very powerful information for them. For the CPACE program I work with, right? I take this information and put it right into our program impact statement so I can show the Energy Office the job years created and the emission reductions associated with each project. So, all right. So that's your nickel tour of the EPIC report. And I know I've shown you all a lot. We're about out of time, but I wanted to see if there are any final thoughts or questions or anything else from anybody. Okay, well, on behalf of Brian and the SRS team, I want to thank you all for joining us for the inaugural EPIC Masterclass. Absolutely feel free to reach out to me or Brian or anybody else on the SRS team if you want to discuss anything about EPIC, or if you haven't jumped in yet and you'd like to see a full demo of the tool, let us know and we can show you that too. So Brian, any parting thoughts?
No, just thank you again all for making the time to learn a little bit about this. And we did have an inquiry from Adria, Tracy, about the PDF report sample. We'll send that around after the webinar this afternoon. And thanks again for making the time for it today. Well done, Tracy.
All right, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
The organizer has ended this